into the abyss, also known as the Cave of Death. Descending the Gouffre Berger is a true journey to the centre of the earth. Located in the southeast of France, this resurgence is one of the most feared by explorers, so much so that it is known as the Cave of Death. More than 1,200 metres, or 3,947 feet deep, with massive lakes inside. It is one of the deepest underground limestone caves in the world. There are sheer drops to descend, as well as passages flooded with water. Because of Gouffre Berger's limestone walls, water can easily penetrate the cave, making it liable to flooding after heavy rainfall, creating a death trap for anyone left inside. 6 people have lost their lives here, 5 due to the flooding issues I just mentioned. Once the bottom is reached, there's a real eerie sense of being somewhere very deep underground. To return from the bottom of the cave back to the surface, it can take anywhere between 15 and 30 hours, without long breaks. As you continue through the cave, there are the initials of the original explorers in the last flooded cavern. That's the end for dry cavers. After that, if you dare to go any further, you have to put on diving gear to explore the totally flooded tunnels. Still, it is regarded as a must-do for cavers around the globe, and the Oxford University Cave Club were about to attempt it. This is Nicolas Dollimore's story and the Gouffre Berger disaster. The bright young adventurers of the Oxford University Cave Club plumb some of the deepest cave systems in the subterranean world. The OUCC is long one of Britain's most prominent caving clubs. Founded in 1957, it made its first forays into the Picos Mountains in 1961. The club has seen countless successful international expeditions, but unfortunately, from time to time, they die doing so. A bitter reminder left by the 1996 Gouffre Berger expedition. Nicolas Dollimore, currently aged 30, from Ramsbottom in Lancashire, was a geography student at Oxford University from 1983 to 1986. It's here she would discover the Oxford University Cave Club, OUCC, and her passion for caving. Nicola was still in her teens when she first took on a pioneering role in expeditions to Spain in the 80s. Her efforts would not go unnoticed either. The Club Tankard Award is given to the most notable or notorious OUCC member of the year, and Nicola would go on to win the award in 1985. As time passed, although not actively involved in club expeditions, she kept in touch with the OUCC through the years, whilst creating a name for herself as one of Britain's top potholers, as well currently working as a lecturer at the University of Liverpool's School of Tropical Medicine. This is where the Gouffre Berger expedition comes into the story. The OUCC had been planning the Gouffre Berger club trip for more than 2 years. This was considered a routine tourist caving trip. As mentioned previously, Nicola was not currently involved in OUCC expeditions. It was only at the last minute where a fellow member, a part of the team, withdrew from the expedition, which opened a spot for one more caver. Being very popular amongst the club, the OUCC had the perfect person in mind and acquired Nicola for the 1996 Gouffre Berger expedition. On Saturday, July the 6th, 1996, Nicola and the OUCC arrived on the site of the Gouffre Berger. The entrance is within the commune of Enghien, high on the Vercors Plateau in southeastern France, located about 10 kilometers west of Grenoble. The walk to the Berger is complicated and leads through pine forests for 3 kilometers over limestone pavements and well-worn, but not always obvious routes. The entrance pitch is a mossy depression in an area of limestone pavement. Whilst on site, the club met a group of 4 divers, also planning to explore the cave, now making it 6 experienced divers who were about to attempt the daunting task of the Berger. 2 British, William Steed, 36, and Nicolas Dollimore, 30, and 4 Hungarians, István Torda, aged 23, Nimith Zsolt, aged 26, Miklos Nergis, aged 28, and Carolee Tompa, aged 24. discovered on the 24th of May 1953 by Joseph Berger and Mark Gouffre, the Gouffre Berger has a long history of expeditions. This was the first cave in the world to be explored below 1,000 meters or 3,281 feet depth, and is still a challenge for most cavers today. Before we dive deep into this tragic story, it should be noted that not all expeditions here end in tragedy. In 1967, Ken Pierce, a metallurgy lecturer from Britain, descended with the Pegasus Caving Club team from Nottingham, UK, organised and led by Peter Watkinson, and along with a 40-metre or 130-foot dive, reached a depth of 1,133 metres or 3,717 feet. They emerged after 13 days underground, having set a new world record at the time. In addition, in 1990, a breakthrough was made, connecting the cave to the nearby Scalet de la Fromagerie, the less used but highest entrance of the cave. But, as mentioned earlier, in recent years there have been 6 fatalities in this cave, 5 due to water, in turn negatively shifting the once positive dynamic that surrounded the Gouffre Berger. With all the necessary pre-checks in place, the group begin the descent into Gouffre Berger on Saturday the 6th of July, 1996. The plan was to reach the bottom of the cave before eventually making their way back to the top by the following day, on Sunday, July the 7th, 1996. The weather was foreboding. Knowing this, the team nevertheless decided to continue on into the Berger at midday. While descending, they came across another team of British cavers who on Friday had to wait a whole 12 hours for the flooding inside the cave to lessen, so they could surface. It should be noted that the deeper the team descended, the less communication they would have with the outside world, due to the simple reason that ordinary radios will not work underground. Nevertheless, with all the warning signs, the team continue with their exploration. It was a very arduous task carrying and moving their equipment and food supplies down vertical shafts, across small lakes and down a mountainside terrain named the Great Rubble Heap. In addition, they had to thread their way down through a maze of huge boulders, carrying very heavy loads on their backs for about 500 meters down to Camp 1 at the bottom, where the team decided it would be best to stop for the day and camp for the night. Unfortunately for them, danger was looming right around the corner. Although the weather was fine when they left, unbeknownst to the group, heavy rain caused by a severe thunderstorm had fallen continuously the previous night, producing the worst floods in that region for some years. Water surged into the cave with swiftness. On the higher peaks, this appeared as a freak snowstorm, which also delayed the Tour de France cycle race in the region. As mentioned earlier, during a storm or heavy rain, the Gouffre Berger can become a dangerous trap as the water levels rise very quickly. A very dangerous situation the group was about to find themselves in. On July the 7th, 1996, after a long night's rest, the team continue exploring the bottommost reaches of the Gouffre Berger. Truly a wonder of the earth, the cave contains some of the largest passages and best formations in the world. Unfortunately for the group, the flood started to catch up with them, making it impossible to savour the beautiful wonders of the cave. Panicked about the ever-changing situation, in an impulse decision, they split up into 2 groups of 3, as the shafts start to become impassable. The first group is comprised completely of Hungarians, István Torda, 23, Nimith Zolt, 26, and Miklos Nevergis, 28. The second group is comprised of 1 Hungarian, Karoli Tompa, 24, and 2 British, Nicola Dollimore, 30, and another fellow OUCC member, William Steed, 36. The pothole began to feel like a bucket as the exhausted cavers tried to scramble to safety. Now divided, the 2 groups pack up and start hastily making their way back to the surface. The first group is stopped by water from a tributary river 1,000 meters deep that is quickly flooding. The situation would not prove better for Group 2. The second group, with William in the lead, arrive at the Puy de l'Oregon, where they give up and decide to find a different way back towards the surface. On their new route, the second group crossed the Grand Canyon and arrived at the Cascade de Topographe, all whilst the water levels still continued dangerously rising. William succeeds in climbing up the pitch and up the 2 meters ledge following it. Nicola and Pivo following close behind, attempting to do the same. With all her might, Nicola tried to get up the 5-foot diagonal rope when she conveyed to William and Pivo that she didn't think she would make it. William tried to encourage her, but at about 800 meters down the cave, Nicola's jammer impeded her leaving a traverse. All the while, the water is falling more and more quickly and stronger around her. She is clipped onto the traverse line practically underneath the gushing waterfall. Stuck and unable to move, this situation continues to deteriorate. To get over the ledge, she would need an incredible amount of force or use ascenders, but with neither, she is completely trapped. Through all of this, Nicola kept her cool and collected demeanor. As the water continued to dangerously rise, William shouted to Nicola to try and get down, realizing they would be better off in the chamber they had just come from. He then sat on a boulder to try to keep the water away from her, but was washed off twice. In the horrifying words of William Steed, the situation turned from a simple problem into an emergency in just a few minutes. I started to get seriously worried, wondering what the hell I could do. Nicola was very calm. I went back to Nicola, but this time I couldn't get near her. I saw water go over her head and heard her scream. At this point, I couldn't do any more. I was in a precarious situation. William and Pivo tried to help, but were unable to do so, and had to climb up to escape the increasing volume of water. Nicola was swept back into the freezing water and pulled half a mile underground. At roughly 9 p.m, Nicola drowned, still attached to the rope, bent in two, her face hanging by her bare feet, her shoes stripped away by the water. William rests trapped between Nicola's corpse and the next waterfall, Cascade Claudine, until Tuesday, while Pivo remains stuck at the summit of the Cascade de Topographe. Unaware of the tragedy below them, the first team is still stripping the cave of equipment as water levels continue to rise. They are able to climb up the cascade to 27 meters, but realize that they will never be able to make it up to the next ledge, the Resort de Sange, which is flooded with water. With no other choice, they decide to go back down the cascade to 27 meters. The first to do so is Istvan, who arrives at a rebelay 15 meters above the next ledge. Unable to continue due to the torrent of water around him, he also dies attached to the rebelay by his cowstail. The other two Hungarians rest at the pitch head, struggling to stay above water. One of them has to stand on a single pedal to survive. Exhausted and hypothermic, the survivors were left with no choice but to wait for rescuers, clinging to their ropes. But as mentioned previously, because the group was so deep underground, the radios would not be able to function, effectively rendering them useless. The agonizing hours turned into days. The survivors' batteries ran out and they were in total darkness, without food. Fortunately for the group, when the party did not appear on the Monday night of the 8th of July 1996, cavers above ground noticed and authorities were alerted, initiating the rescue recovery. The disaster was first announced by the mayor of Engins on Wednesday the 10th of July 1996. Rescuers were initially prevented from entering the cave due to the sheer volume of water, but eventually found William and Pivo that evening, exhausted and hypothermic. William was utterly exhausted, cold and unable to move. He was still 1,900 foot below ground and too ill to come up. Therefore, he was taken to a dry cavern to rest, where both him and Pivo were treated medically on site, given high-energy food and warmed up, and then escorted to the surface, largely under their own steam. Due to the nature of the cave, William had to muster up enough strength as possible because the rescuers could not carry him out due to the reason that the cave becomes too difficult and narrow. Therefore, he must help himself and use the ropes. William, who spent 3 days on a ledge awaiting help, would go on to say, "I'm extremely lucky to have got out." William emerged on Thursday the 11th of July 1996 and was helicoptered to hospital in Grenoble. Doctors said he was in excellent physical condition, but very tired. William was saved by the rope wrapped around his body. It was so tight it cut into his legs, preventing any circulation. Pivo got out on Friday the 12th of July, 1996, and was taken to a local gîte. As for the 3 Hungarians lower down the cave, at -900 meters, István had been deceased for a number of days now, while Kucher and Mora were found very exhausted and hypothermic. Rescuers spent a long time warming them up before getting them out of the cave over the weekend of the 13th to the 14th of July 1996. Kucher managed to come up mostly under his own steam and was recovering well. Mora needed the use of a stretcher. A suspension in a harness had injured his legs. Many people were involved in the rescue, several policemen and firemen, but mostly volunteers from the SSF, the Spilier Secours Français, the French equivalent of the CRO. At the present time, on July the 15th, 1996, there are over 200 people on the site, including 177 SSF volunteers. The bodies of Nicola and István have not been recovered, and work is in progress to do this before detackling. Nicola's body was found on Wednesday, July the 17th, 1996, by a French rescue team deep in the extensive cave system. The body of István was found soon afterwards. Because of this tragedy, the Nicola phone, an ultra-long-wave device, was developed by Graham Naylor, an Oxford caver of the 80s generation, created to allow communication from both camps to the surface. It is housed in a small, waterproof case and is connected to an aerial or wire extending along the passage for 100 feet in each direction. Nicola's husband, Nick Perrin, financed the Nicola phone's development in the hope that if cavers could communicate with the surface, future tragedies like hers might be averted. This is a story of unfortunate events. The club members on the trip were ranked among the UK's best cavers. This was considered a routine tourist caving trip. The party were nevertheless very well prepared and equipped and were physically fit. This disaster was a freak of nature, similar to an avalanche for mountaineers. Nevertheless, the caving community was able to make something positive out of an horrific ending. May Nicola and István rest in peace. This has been Gripping Horror, and I hope to see you in the next one.